News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
I want you to imagine something for a second. Think about the ground beneath your feet right now, the foundation of your house, the sidewalk you take to get coffee, the asphalt you park on.
Right.
It is the literal definition of solid. It's the baseline of our physical reality. We build our entire lives, our cities, our routines on this ironclad assumption that the earth stays put.
Yeah, we completely take it for granted.
Exactly. But imagine if, in a matter of seconds, that totally rigid, solid ground suddenly betrays your trust. It rolls, it splits apart, and it literally starts behaving like a liquid.
The psychological shock of that is just profound. I mean, entirely independent of the physical destruction.
Yeah.
When the earth itself becomes the threat, the very foundation of your safety is stripped away instantly.
Yeah.
You're left with nowhere to stand, literally and figuratively.
And that is exactly the nightmare scenario that unfolded for millions of people on Monday, June 8th, 2026. Today, our mission is to unpack the mechanics, the cascading impacts, and the ongoing response to the massive magnitude 7.8 earthquake that struck offshore of Sarangani in the Philippines.
It's a hugely complex event.
It really is. We are going to figure out how an event of this scale actually works, from the first deep rupture miles underground all the way to the ongoing rescue efforts up on the surface.
And to do this, we are looking at two very different types of sources today.
Right.
We have the official earthquake primer from the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, which is often referred to as PAIVLLCS, along with the very latest situational reports from the Office of Civil Defense.
Reading these two documents side by side is honestly a bit surreal because you have the PAIVLLCS primer, which is this incredibly cold, clinical, scientific breakdown of tectonic geometry and seismic waves. And then you turn to the OCD situational report. And it is a stark, very human list of missing people, damaged homes, and hospital fuel shortages.
It really represents the two halves of a disaster.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand the human reality on the surface, we have to look at the physics of what happened beneath it. Take us to that Monday morning.
So the time is 87.37 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. People are in the middle of their morning routines.
Commuting, getting coffee.
Exactly. Opening up shops for the work week. At that exact moment, 32 kilometers west of the municipality of Masim in Sarangani, and this is critical at an estimated depth of 33 kilometers beneath the ocean floor, the earth violently shifts.
Wow.
This is a magnitude 7.8 release of seismic energy caused by subduction along the Cotabato Trench.
Subduction. Okay, let me try an analogy here to see if we can visualize the mechanics of this, because it's hard to wrap your head around millions of tons of rock moving.
Go for it.
Imagine two giant, incredibly heavy conveyor belts pushing directly into each other. They can't both go up, so one of these massive belts is forced to grind underneath the other one, diving down into the earth.
Right.
As they scrape past each other, they get stuck. The engines are still pushing, the belts are trying to move, but the friction builds up for years, maybe even decades.
Mm-hmm.
The tension just gets tighter and tighter until the rock simply cannot hold it anymore, and then it breaks loose all at once.
That's a great way to picture it. And the geometry of that sudden snap is what dictates the destruction above. The overriding plate essentially springs back, releasing decades of pent-up energy in a matter of seconds.
Okay.
Now, what's fascinating here is how the depth and location play into this. You mentioned the earthquake was offshore, 32 kilometers away from Masim and 33 kilometers deep.
Right, which sounds far away.
Exactly. A common assumption is that if an earthquake happens far away and deep underwater, the ocean in the sheer distance might, muffle the impact, like setting off a firecracker in a deep pool of water.
It seems intuitive. Like the farther you are from the epicenter, the safer you should be.
The physics of seismic waves tell a totally different story. That depth and location actually act like a massive broadcast tower underground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the energy radiated outward and upward across the region. So while the epicenter was offshore, the most intense shaking was felt inland, specifically in General Santos City.
The reports say General Santos City hit a PI 7th on the intensity scale. What does a 7 actually feel like for the person standing in it?
So PI stands for the PAIVLCS Earthquake Intensity Scale. A 7th is categorized officially as destructive.
That's a scary word.
It is. Heavy objects and furniture overturn on their own. Old or poorly built structures suffer considerable damage. If you are standing on the upper floor of a building, it is actually difficult to keep your balance. The shaking is violent.
That is terrifying.
And the reach of this energy was staggering. I mean, it was felt as far away as Aboyog and Dulag in Leyte, which is hundreds of kilometers to the north.
In Leyte, it was a pea ice too, which the reports describe as slightly felt. So basically, swinging chandeliers, maybe the water rippling in your glass.
Exactly.
The fact that a single snap underwater can be destructive in one city and then rock a glass of water hundreds of miles away is wild to me. But wait, why was General Santos City hit so hard if it wasn't the closest landmass to the epicenter?
It all comes down to the soil beneath the city. General Santos City sits on deep sedimentary deposits.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, when seismic waves travel through hard bedrock, they move very fast, but the physical shaking is relatively tight.
Right.
But when those same waves hit loose, sandy sedimentary basins, they slow down. And when they slow down, their amplitude, the height and violence of the wave increases dramatically.
So if you place a brick on a table and hit the table, the brick vibrates. But if you put a bowl of Jell-O on the table and hit it, the Jell-O amplifies the vibration and sloshes everywhere. General Santos City was basically built on the Jell-O.
That is the perfect way to visualize seismic amplification. The soil composition acts as an amplifier for the destructive energy.
That is just brutal.
It is. And unfortunately, that initial massive snap at 7:37 a.m. was really just the opening act. The Earth doesn't just snap back into place and go quiet.
Which brings us to the aftershocks, because the data in these reports is staggering. By 11:00 a.m. on Monday, just a few hours after the main quake, the Philippine Seismic Network recorded 138 aftershocks.
Right.
But then the update from the Office of Civil Defense, by 7:00 a.m. Tuesday morning, the number had exploded. 1,055 aftershocks in under 24 hours, ranging from a tiny magnitude 1.3 all the way up to a massive M6.7.
And a 6.7 aftershock is a major, highly destructive earthquake in its own right in any other context.
Explain to me why this happens mechanically. Why does the Earth keep shaking 1,000 times? Didn't the pressure already release during the 7.8?
Yeah, the tension released, yes. But the tectonic plates didn't slide back perfectly flush like a rubber band snapping back into shape. The crust deep underground is utterly shattered. You have millions of tons of jagged, broken rock that is suddenly unsupported or shoved into new, unnatural positions.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so those 1,055 aftershocks are the physical sound and feeling of those massive, broken subterranean blocks grinding against each other, collapsing, and eventually settling into a new permanent arrangement.
Wow. Imagine you are the listener, sitting in a house that just survived a 7.8 earthquake. Your walls might be cracked, you are terrified, and then a 6.7 hits you while you're trying to figure out if you should go outside or stay put.
It's unbearable.
The mental toll of 1,000 aftershocks in a day means you weren't sleeping. Every single rattle of a window feels like the end of the world is starting all over again.
It creates a state of perpetual, exhausting hypervigilance. And while the shattered crust was grinding back together beneath the ground, the ocean was reacting to the massive displacement of the seafloor.
Yes, let's talk about the tsunami, because I want to push back on something I read in the data here. The reports state that tsunami waves were recorded along the coasts of Kiamba and Masim in Sarangani and Calamansig in Sultan Kudarat. And the height of these waves was approximately 1 meter. In Madi City and Zamboanga City, they were less than a meter. I have to admit, when I read that, I was a little confused.
How so?
Well, PHI-VLCS issued a destructive tsunami warning for 9 whole provinces: Sarangani, Davao Occidental, Tawi-Tawi, Sulu, Basilan, Zamboanga del Sur, Zamboanga Sibugay, Sultan Kudarat, and South Cotabato.
That's right.
If you're listening to this and wondering why a 1 meter wave triggered an alert for 9 provinces, you aren't alone. I mean, 1 meter is about 3 feet. It's waist high. Surfers ride waves much bigger than that just for fun. So why does a waist high wave trigger a multi-province destructive warning?
It's a great question, and it highlights a very dangerous public misconception about tsunamis. We are conditioned by the beach to think of waves as these thin, cresting curls of surface water that break on the sand and immediately pull back.
Yeah, like what you see in movies.
Right. But a surfing wave is just a surface disturbance caused by wind. A tsunami is an entirely different physical phenomena.
How does the physics differ?
A tsunami is the entire water column moving. It is not just the surface, it is the ocean floor, all the way up to the surface, displaced by that submarine earthquake.
Oh, wow.
So a 1 meter tsunami is not a waist-high curl of water. It is a 1-meter high, solid plateau of dense, heavy water stretching back for miles, and it's moving at immense speed. Behind that leading edge is the entire weight of the ocean constantly pushing.
Oh, I see. It's not a wave crashing on the beach. It's more like a rapidly rising, incredibly fast flood of concrete.
That is exactly the right image. 1 cubic meter of water weighs a metric ton. Imagine a wall of water, a meter high, pushing inland with the continuous force of a freight train.
That's terrifying.
It doesn't crest and fall. It just keeps rushing inland, picking up cars, debris, trees, and using them as battering rams against buildings. That continuous, heavy pushing force is exactly why a 1-meter tsunami is extraordinarily dangerous and absolutely justifies a destructive warning across a massive coastline.
That completely changes how you picture the threat. And the primer outlines some really vital natural warning signs for coastal communities, right? Because an earthquake that close to shore doesn't give authorities much time to send out a text alert.
Exactly. Minutes at most.
If you are on the beach, your survival often depends on recognizing the natural signs. The primer emphasizes 3 words: shake, drop, and roar.
The shake is your first warning. A strongly felt earthquake means the clock has started. The drop is crucial.
What happens during the drop?
Before the main tsunami surge arrives, the ocean will often suddenly recede, dropping dramatically and exposing the sea floor for hundreds of feet.
And people sometimes walk out to look at the stranded fish or the exposed reef, which is crazy.
Which is a fatal mistake. The water is pulling back to gather momentum for the massive inland surge.
Oh, man.
And finally, the roar. Survivors often describe the sound of an incoming tsunami as a deafening roar, similar to a jet engine or a speeding train. If you experience the shake, the drop, or the roar, you do not wait for an official siren. You immediately evacuate to higher ground.
The ocean surging inland is terrifying enough, but for the people further from the coast, the threat is what the shaking is doing to the soil itself.
Right, the geological hazards.
The primer details things like landslides and rockfalls in the hilly terrains, but then there is liquefaction. Going back to that opening metaphor about the ground turning to liquid, the primer lists subsidence, lateral spreads, and sand boils. Walk us through the mechanics of a sand boil, because it sounds incredibly bizarre.
It really is. So the intense shaking of a magnitude 7.8 acts on water-saturated sandy soil like a massive centrifuge. Deep underground, the water is normally trapped between grains of sand. But the violent vibration squeezes that water, increasing the pressure exponentially until the water literally forces its way up to the surface.
Wow.
It erupts from the ground like a geyser of mud and sand. That is a sand boil.
So you could be standing in a flat, seemingly solid field, and the ground suddenly loses all its bearing strength and shoots mud into the air like a geyser. The ground literally turns to quicksand underneath building foundations.
Yes. Buildings can tilt over completely intact because the soil beneath them simply flows away.
That's just wild to think about.
Add to that the limestone bedrock in other areas, where the shaking caused roofs of underground caves to collapse, opening up sinkholes. You have the ground shaking violently, the ocean surging inward, the hillsides coming down, and the flat ground turning to soup or opening up to swallow things.
Is it a textbook multi-hazard event? No. With the earth breaking open and the sea rising, if you live in that region, it is very natural to look at the neighboring mountains and wonder what is going to happen next. Which brings us to the active volcanoes.
Yes, a very common concern.
The region has the Matutum and Parker volcanoes. The primer explicitly notes that VLCS is closely monitoring them. But wait, I want to push back on this a bit.
Okay.
If the primer explicitly states this earthquake is tectonic in origin, so just 2 plates grinding and totally unrelated to magma, why are they spending resources monitoring the volcanoes? Isn't issuing a statement about volcano surveillance just going to cause unnecessary panic for a public that is already terrified? It seems contradictory.
It is a totally valid concern, and it really comes down to the scientific precautionary principle. You are right that the systems are fundamentally different. Tectonic activity is massive plates of solid rock snapping. Volcanic activity is the movement of magma and pressurized gases from deep within the earth up to the surface. A tectonic snap doesn't magically create magma or certainly force a volcano to erupt if it wasn't already filled and pressurized.
So shaking the tectonic plates doesn't act like shaking a soda bottle where the magma just blows its top.
Not directly. The friction of the tectonic plates is independent of the magma chamber's internal pressure.
Okay, good to know.
However, while a tectonic quake doesn't cause a volcano to be born, an incredibly violent event like a 7.8 with massive physical displacement of rock, can potentially disturb the local plumbing of an existing active volcano.
The local plumbing, like the internal structure.
Exactly. It's the network of cracks and fissures the magma and gas use to travel. The violent shaking could cause shifts in the rocks surrounding the magma chamber, maybe opening new pathways for escaping gases or blocking old ones.
Oh, I see.
So it is a highly rigorous scientific protocol. You don't assume the mountains are going to erupt, but after a massive trauma to the Earth's crust, you immediately double-check the vital signs of the nearby active volcanoes, just in case the underground pathways shifted.
That makes perfect sense. It's better to be overly cautious when you are dealing with mountains of fire, even if you have to manage some public anxiety.
Precisely.
But moving away from the underlying geology, we need to focus on the human reality. All of these mechanics, the subduction, the sedimentary amplification, the liquefaction, they're all happening directly underneath where people sleep and work and live.
And the human cost of a multi-hazard event of this magnitude is always devastating.
Looking at the latest situation report from the Office of Civil Defense Tuesday morning, the death toll stands at 37. They are still validating these figures, but the breakdown is sobering.
It is.
4 deaths recorded in Region 11, the Davao region, and 33 deaths in Region 12, Sasi S. Sarjan. Specifically, Sarangani province has 18 deaths. General Santos City, which we now know suffered from that sedimentary amplification, suffered 12 deaths, and 3 in South Cotabato.
Yeah.
Alongside that, there are 144 people injured and 4 missing.
And the national government is stepping in to assist local officials with relief operations right now.
And reading through the logistics of that government response, one detail really stood out to me. The OCD mentioned they're deploying generators and massive amounts of diesel fuel specifically for the use of hospitals.
That's a critical lifeline.
Right. We always picture search and rescue dogs or helicopters pulling people from rubble, and that does happen. But the real bottleneck in saving lives immediately after the dust settles is infrastructure survival. The 144 injured people need surgery, they need ventilators, they need sterile equipment. If the power grid is destroyed by the quake, the hospital goes dark. Sending diesel fuel and generators isn't as cinematic as a helicopter rescue, but it is exactly what keeps a bad situation from spiraling into a total catastrophe.
Well, the modern world relies entirely on electricity. Without it, medicine reverts to the 19th century overnight. You cannot run life support on batteries for long.
Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
And along with that vital infrastructure support, the government is urgently drilling down on immediate safety protocols for the survivors who are dealing with those 1,000-plus aftershocks.
Right, they reiterate the drop, cover, and hold procedure. But there's also a very stark warning about the built environment. Civil engineers and local engineering offices are advising everyone to exercise extreme caution around any structure that looks weakened.
This is so important.
Yeah.
A building might be standing after the initial 7.8, but its internal structural integrity, the rebar, the load-bearing columns, could be fundamentally compromised.
So it's standing, but just barely.
Exactly. When one of those M6.7 aftershocks rolls through, that weakened building will just pancake.
Wow.
So the mandate is absolute. Damaged buildings must not be reoccupied until they are officially certified safe by structural engineers.
And the same goes for the natural environment, right? People need to inspect slopes for tension cracks because the next heavy rain or the next aftershock could easily trigger a landslide that didn't quite release during the main quake.
It's a comprehensive, overwhelming state of emergency. But if we connect this to the bigger picture as we wrap up this analysis, we have to look at the historical context.
Because reading the PHIV-LCS primer, you realize this isn't an isolated freak occurrence.
No, the historical context is actually quite chilling. The coast of Sarangani directly faces the Cotabato Trench. This is a major known earthquake-generating structure.
Okay.
Based on the PHIV-LCS earthquake catalog, between 1917 and 2023, there were at least 7 significant earthquakes with magnitudes ranging from M5.7 all the way up to M8.0 that affected Sarangani and the nearby provinces.
7 massive quakes in roughly a century.
And the most alarming data point, the last damaging earthquake in this exact vicinity was a magnitude 6.8 event that occurred on November 17, 2023.
Wait. So they had a major damaging M6.8 quake in late 2023, and less than 3 years later, they are hit with an even larger 7.8.
Yep.
That is a brutal reality to live with. It perfectly illustrates why the constant monitoring, the rapid tsunami alerts, and the strict building codes are not just bureaucratic exercises. They are literal matters of life and death in a seismically active zone.
It's a geographical reality of living next to a sleeping giant.
Let's bring all of this together. The sheer scale of what happened on June 8th is just staggering when you look at the mechanics. We are talking about decades of subduction zone tension snapping 33 kilometers deep. That energy radiated outward, getting amplified by sedimentary basins to deliver a magnitude 7.8 punch that severely damaged General Santos City and shook a massive portion of the Philippines.
Right.
We saw the entire water column displaced to form a fast-moving concrete-like tsunami. We saw the ground turn to liquid through the centrifuge effect of liquefaction, and we saw over 1,000 aftershocks, battering a population already mourning the tragic loss of 37 lives. It is the ultimate multi-hazard event.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's a stark reminder of why understanding this science matters, regardless of where you live.
Exactly.
Even if you are thousands of miles away from a fault line, the interconnected nature of our global economy, our shared humanity, and the increasing frequency of complex, cascading disasters means that being prepared is a universal necessity.
Yeah.
Understanding how communities prepare for and respond to multi-hazard events, from monitoring distant volcanoes to deploying fuel for hospital generators, is vital knowledge for navigating an unpredictable world.
It really is. And it leaves me with one final thought for you to mull over. When a community lives alongside a known sleeping giant like the Cotabato Trench, when the historical data proves without a doubt that the next massive snap is just a matter of when and not if, how do we fundamentally rethink the way we build our cities? If we know as a scientific certainty that the solid ground is eventually going to betray us and act like a liquid, how do we change the concrete we pour, the infrastructure we rely on, and the very places we choose to call home?
That is the defining question for the future of urban engineering and human resilience. Thank you for diving into the mechanics and the data with us today.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay safe, stay curious, and we will catch you on the next one.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.